Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
We're remote, dude.
Oh, what's up, my brother? I tell you,
remote.
I love it. No, it's so funny. We were just doing a session with Kelly. I'm looking forward to posting that. Right. And so you and her, I'm here posting on social media. Right. I'm doing updates on social media, and you and she are talking about
using your phones,
using your phone and being in the moment.
Right.
And so I had to throw in multitasking.
Yes, you're covered. You're covered. Hey, do you have coffee right now? Because I'm going to need you caffeinated.
Absolutely.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, put me on the spot.
All
Man.
right, great.
I'm totally caffeinated.
So we got a few minutes
Let's
here in
get to work.
between sessions. We are remote, thanks to Audio Hive for coming out and plugging us in.
Oh my God, man, they're
that's
mobile.
Great, Brian and assistant extraordinaire Zach. And anyway, yesterday you did a session. And I wasn't here, unfortunately. I had a prior commitment and wasn't able to witness it, and they didn't record it. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you, and I'll do a little setup, but I'm going to ask you to kind of summarize or do the best you can to consolidate and condense what your presentation was yesterday. So we're at a retreat, and the theme of the retreat is Seeds We Sow. So there's really three main speakers throughout the session. And the first session was the seeds we sow. You know, what seeds did we put down there to become an alcoholic, and how did watering those bad seeds turn into disaster, at least for me, right? Then you came in and you said, all right, well, what do we do about it? Right? What new seeds did we put down? How do we fertilize them? How do we grow them into a strong recovery root system? And then today we're going to end up with, what were the seeds that were sown? I mean, how did that work? That work that you talked about yesterday, and what is life like now? Right? So it's experience, strength, and hope. Right? But if you can do your best, Glenn, because I wasn't there, so selfishly, just kind of lay out what you did. And I know you used props, but
no, I use props. I will do it.
You're going to have to paint some word pictures.
I will
do your best.
I will preface with this. So Karen asked me to do it, right?
Yes.
And she goes, I just talk about 20 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And I had it all laid out. I had props, which I'll share with you in a second. But I just want to set your expectations on time because I kind of blew that part of it.
Okay.
And I went an hour.
You went an hour. I was going to
hour.
Say you went 6 minutes and you were done with all your material. And it's like, okay, now
I went an hour. But, I think some of that is, I use a lot of seeds.
Right.
I sowed a lot of seeds. Okay. So
yes.
I will, thanks for putting me on the spot.
Yep.
I will retort or respond with a flash roll.
Okay.
It's, what I went through very quickly.
Okay, great.
Right?
Excellent.
And so I was asked, and I had the middle one. I had what seeds or actions or decisions did I make at the point of, hitting my bottom? What did that look like?
Which was when exactly?
So that was September of 2014, but my sobriety date is May 24th of 2015. So
okay.
I have 9 years, 11 months, 3 weeks sober. Roughly.
Okay.
I know. I was laughing. I tell you this
because I day count.
Oh no. You do day count, and there's a day counter gym here. But I always laugh at people on social media when they're like, "Hey, in 4 months, I'll have a year."
Yeah, right.
So I always have to jump in, and I'm like, "Hey, in 10 years and 1 month, I'll have 20 years."
Right. I don't know when. I don't.
I mean, my mind's just so foolish. Look at Brian laugh. It's just so foolish, right? And I think that shows where people are at in their sobriety. Right. They just don't get it yet, which is fine. It took me years to get. Okay,
so go ahead.
All right. So she asked me, to do the middle one, right? What seeds or actions or decisions did I make, at the point of getting sober, and so I do presentations for work all week long. They're focused and pressured, and
PowerPoint.
No,
death by PowerPoint.
I actually stopped doing PowerPoint because I don't want to die by PowerPoint.
Yeah, right.
I stopped doing it. But so I had fun with this. You know, it was a chance to just have fun. Back in the day, I did a lot of sales, and I do sales. I just had fun, right? So I used some props. So I'll paint a picture of my props. So I had, when you think about planting seeds, I had a planter, right? A ceramic planter that I had soil in. I put soil.
Just dirt.
Yeah, just peat moss, organic peat moss, right? But the quality of soil kind of, and I put a label on the outside of this thing, is that the soil is the AA, right? Is the AA program, and it needs to be good soil, good AA program, good meetings, good groups, you know, good way of looking at AA.
So I could take last year's planter from outside, and I could just grab the planter, and it'd be last year's recycled stuff with roots in there. So
I didn't do that.
Okay,
I
you
used
didn't
all
use
fresh,
all fresh.
organic,
Okay.
Miracle Grow, peat
Okay.
moss.
Okay,
right?
so you're
Potting
starting.
soil.
You're starting
I
with.
start with the best.
Okay.
Right, and that's why I called it the soil is my AA program. Right. Then I had a poster with a big sun on it. Right. And it was interactive, so every time I held it up, I had the group say higher power.
Okay.
Right. So throughout my presentation, I'd hold this up and they say higher power. Right. Who I call God, who I call dude, small G God. Right. That's my dude. He rules my life. And then on the back of that, I had fertilizer equals community, right? So the fertilizers that we use to help grow these seeds are the AA community, right? It's who we're with, it's who we're around, it's who we have in our first wheel cars, right? Which also means getting the wrong people out, right? So that's fertilizer. Then I had the watering can, which I put a big label sponsor on, right? Because my sponsor's my watering can. I can plant all the seeds I want, but he helps me get water. He makes sure I get water. He makes sure that everything is tended to. Not too much water, not too little water, but that's sponsor, right? So that's kind of the props. Okay. So, and then I had a bag of seeds. Okay. I had a bag of wildflower seeds. So every time I talked about one of my seeds, I'd reach into the sunflower bag or the wildflower bag of seeds, and I'd pull them out, and I'd just throw them in the, you know. So it was kind of interactive, and I had the folks participating, right? So the first thing I did is I flash rolled, because I think it's good to give people context, right? And first thing I set it up, I'm like, hey, folks, as I talk, let's look for the similarities, not for the differences, right? It's so easy to look for differences and say, I didn't do that, I'm not that bad, or I didn't do that, I'm not that bad, right? And exclude your way out of a solution, right? So I say, hey, look for similarities, just like the big book. I read the big book. Man, I see so many similarities. You know, I see my fingerprints or my DNA in every one of those stories in one way or another, right? So that's how I kind of teed it up. And so then I kind of flash rolled, you know, I focused on the middle, right? What seeds did I plant when I decided to get sober? But I also flash rolled a little bit at the beginning and a little bit at the end, right? Just to put everything in context. So the seeds that I sowed that got me to alcoholic hell, so this is like the precursor. The seeds, the two main seeds I sowed to get to alcoholic hell were self and ego. They were my two big ones, right? They got me, they were the right combination and the right equation that drove me to a disease or the ism that I used alcohol to escape from. And then I had some minor seeds: guilt, shame, remorse, self-hate, loathing, liar, right? Dishonest. I mean, all those other things, right? And I know Dr. John likes to say, well, you know, I'm not really a liar. I think if I tell 4,000 lies, it makes me a liar, right? That's just what I think. So I was a liar, right? So that got me to alcoholic hell. That got me to my bottom. It got me to 4 full-blown rehabs, 45-day hospital program at Rush with 10 PhDs sitting in a line on a panel trying to fix me, right? That's not how this works. They failed. All their egos, they failed. All I had to go to an AA meeting and surrender to AA. That's it. But their egos couldn't handle that. I drank all the way through that. Fools, right? And then I had 80-plus hospitalizations or detoxes. And if you sit there, and for those that don't know what a detox is, you go to a hospital, You hang out there for 4 or 5 days. You get Ativan, right? It's like a floating trip. You get to pick your own food you want to eat at every meal. You get any snacks you want, ice cream, sherbet, anytime you want it. You get to watch TV all you want. You get to hang out in the nurses' lounge and chat with the nurses, right? That's what a 4 or 5 day detox looks like, right? And it costs about $20,000.
Right.
I've had 80 plus of them. I lost count at 80, right? I had 6 in 1 week at my very end, right? So I spent a ton of money, or the insurance company spent a ton of money, or the state spent a ton of money on my detoxes, right? They should send me a Christmas card because I don't go anymore. But I spent over a year of my life, actual days. If you count all my days in these detoxes, that's over a year I have spent in detox hell, right? So I try to make it attractive. It is absolute mental hell being in there because I failed again. I messed up again. What am I doing? I have no solution. Sometimes I go 2 times in 1 week. I remember leaving from one hospital with the IV still in. I went to another hospital. I mean, just insanity, right? So that got me.
Can I just interject?
Yeah.
I mean, that is insanity redefined.
I got really in trouble that time too.
I know,
the hospital
right?
was like,
Yeah,
"What are you
can't do
doing?"
that, right.
Where I saw the bracelet on. Like, what is going on here?
So the bottom line here for me is, you were in the extreme. You were in the extreme, but that's what you were feeding was the extreme. You kept feeding that extreme.
And at some point, I probably my sponsor said this. A couple other people said this, and I haven't unpacked it. They're like, at some point, you became addicted to being taken care of in the hospitals.
Right.
Like
that's what I'm saying. You were feeding that extreme.
And the crazy part is most of those visits, an ambulance would take me there.
Yeah.
So my game is I would get absolutely messed up. I was normally in the 3.5 to 4 range. Highest I was with a 0.46 blood alcohol level. I'd be on the corner somewhere, drunk out of my mind, not knowing what to do next. I'd go find some corner. I call 911.
Yeah.
And the same ambulance would come pick me up every time. The guys are like,
you had your own chauffeur.
Oh, the guys are like, what are you doing?
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, I'm trying to find a solution. Okay. So in like June-ish of 2014, I had, probably 6 months sober, and I relapsed yet again. And it kept getting worse and worse. And I landed up in the hospital, and I remember 2 o'clock in the morning, my sponsor showed up, God love him, and a neurosurgeon in red scrubs came in, sat on the counter. He goes, Glenn, I fell. I was a big faller, and I'm a big guy, so I hit hard. He goes, look, you got a brain bleed. You probably won't we can't do anything about it. You probably won't live through the night. And I just laid back, kind of peaceful. And I'm like, I knew this shit would kill me. This is it. Mm-hmm. So I kind of, just said, okay, I'm gone, right? And I drifted off, and then I woke up, and here I am, right? So that was then. That still didn't stop me. I got about another 3 months sober, and I went out for a work conference out in Palm Springs. 3 days, I remember I had a bottle in my backpack. 4 days, total blackout, I have no memory. CEO came to me on a Saturday morning with a pile of something, and he says, look, I think we might have a problem. I'm like, I know we do. And I just went back to bed. And so I was 6 hospitals in a week across the country. I landed up on an 8-day detox, which was really painful. They didn't like to give me Ativan at the levels that I liked. I wanted to cruise through detox, and they were really concerned about a lot of health issues. And long story short, I landed up on my counselor's floor of what was to become my 4-month program on a Friday afternoon. I couldn't even sit in a chair. I was so hurt. And I looked at him, and the first seed that I used at that time was my seed of surrender. And I said, I will do anything you tell me to do. I just cannot take another drink, right? And I had said that before, and it sounded cute. I was really good with the words, not good with the actions, not good with the intentions, not good with the results. But I was really good at saying it. And so I got to the point where nobody listened to my words anymore because they were useless. They were meaningless. But I really meant that. And still to this day, I will do anything I need to do. So
when you planted that seed, did you have any idea what it was going to germinate?
Zero.
It was going to turn into?
At that point in time,
right.
I was literally.
It was a seed of desperation.
Yeah. I was tired of my bullshit. I had enough proof that I was not the smartest guy in the room. Everything I touched turned to shit, not gold. And I was just tired. And I was either going to this and giving it one more shot, or I was going to a homeless shelter, and I don't know what was going on there. Right.
So you throw a seed in there.
Yeah.
A seed of surrender.
I call it surrender. That's 100% what I did, and what I was doing is what came out of what I resolved with everything I had left. What comes out of his mouth, I will execute. It didn't matter what. So he says, "Okay, Glenn, go unpack. Tonight is sober movie night."
Okay.
Cool, man. I can do that.
Cool surrender.
I can.
A little popcorn. A
Yeah,
little pop.
I can do that. 12 guys watch the movie. Super bad. I actually laughed. It was funny. I'm like, hey, this surrender shit is kind of working.
That's right. Sure.
Day
Day
two.
one.
Yeah, day number 2. Well, okay, we're going for a 2-mile sober walk. I'm like, whew.
Who?
That's a little too much, right?
Can I take my car?
Yeah, that's a little too much. Didn't have my car at that point. I had everything I owned in my car, but the car wasn't there. It was at my sober brother Mark's house. So I didn't have a car. Sober walk, right? I got through that. I'm like, now we're pushing it. Sober walk, and I literally did exactly what I didn't do anything without them telling me what to do. Mm-hmm. It's almost like being a prisoner. Mm-hmm. And so I started, and then 2 weeks later, I'm in his office. He goes, hey, Glenn, I connect with your daughters, and just want to let you know that I've talked to both of them. He goes, we need to start working on the fact you're never going to see them anymore. And I'm like, whoa. Like, no, like we need to get them on the phone. We need to do this. We need to meet with them. Did you tell them how hard I'm trying? Did you tell them I surrendered? And he's like, I'm like, that's not acceptable. He goes, whoa, I thought you surrendered. I'm like, well, I did, except for that. That's
not that provision.
He's like, no. Surrender means surrender. He goes, I am telling you with every bit of confidence and integrity, and education I have, the bridge is burnt. Like, that is the last thing you need to focus on right now. I'm like, yeah, but I love them. He goes, Glenn, you love booze more. And he said, you have proved you love booze more. And I'm like, yeah, but. And he's like, look, you said you surrendered. Where you at? And I was like, you're right. Let's start working on it, right? And a couple of weeks later, I asked him, hey, what are we going to do? He goes, I want you to write a letter to each of them. I said, okay. I was so diligent on my homework. Things that were supposed to take 5 days, I did in 5 hours. I was trying to be the best student. So I wrote these letters, and he put them up on his shelf. I said, well, aren't you going to mail them? He goes, no, I'm not going to mail them. I'm like, then why'd you have me do it? He goes, I wanted you to flush through your feelings and thoughts and get it on paper. He never mailed them. Like, every time I went in his office, I looked to see if they were mailed. He's like, Glenn, you're not listening to me. That is over. The door is shut. We are not opening that door. We need you to. So I'm like, okay. So that was, seed. So another seed I sowed is I chose to live in a sober living environment.
Okay.
Right. Really
Tough.
Good for me. Guardrails.
And mind you, if I could, your background was you had big houses, big toys, big cars, you were the man.
I had it all, but
you had it all.
I quickly realized none of that shit matters in this world.
So now you're calling it a sober living. Others know it as a halfway house. I mean, you're really making.
So I lived in sober living for 4 months, but then I went to live with a sober brother in the program. Right. For 3 years. Mm-hmm. I thought it was going to be 3 months. It landed 3 years because it worked. Right? He and I would go to meetings together and work on sobriety together. And in general, it worked really, really well, so I stayed there. So that was I was commitment to that, right? Mm-hmm. Another commitment is I kept going to meetings. I kept doing the right thing. I kept doing regardless of how I felt. One of the things I saw on social media, on Facebook, and we know if it's on Facebook, it's true. Your thoughts and feelings are facts. Act on them. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I did that for 50 years. That's bullshit.
That didn't work.
Right? I need to do the next right. So one of my seeds is do the next right thing regardless of how I felt. I still do that today.
But here's the challenge. You planted the seed of doing the next right thing, and there's no sprout. You don't know what that's going to grow into. You don't know. Were you visualizing the marigold it was going to grow into? Or
I had no
idea.
You were
just
at
caring
the point,
for the seed.
At the point, I was focused on what was the seed, what was the action. I had no idea of the outcome.
Okay.
None. All I wanted was daily survival. And I've shared this before. There were days I went to bed 3, 4, 5 o'clock, in the afternoon just to finish the day sober. I mean, my focus for 1 or 2 years was I just want to get through this day sober, And that was my focus. That was a good seed.
Was it hell?
Was it hell?
Yeah.
Some days.
Okay.
And some days, and this is another seed that I shared, is I call it my plastic chair moment, my white plastic chair. When I was in that 4-month program, one of my exercises, they put me in this field, no phone, no books, no anything. It was a beautiful blue 70-degree day, blue sky. I sat in that chair for 3 hours, and I literally went out of my mind. Mm-hmm. I couldn't sit with myself. I hated I literally went out of my mind. Today, I had quiet time yesterday. We had meditation yesterday. I would crave 3 hours because I have a different headspace today. But then I was a prisoner in my own head. I actually was going out of my mind during those 3 hours, right? But one of the seeds I sowed was I learned to suffer better, right? I learned to sit in the shit. I learned some patience, right? I stopped demanding the dopamine hits and the instant gratification. And one of the seeds in the promises is these promises will always materialize, sometimes quickly, for me, always slowly, but they will always materialize if we work for them, right? So I really started, and that is a seed that I planted on a daily basis.
So in that case, you had a vision of what the marigold was going to turn out to be.
Zero, none at all.
Okay. So you're just hoeing the field.
Yep.
You have no idea what this is going to produce, but you know it's on good soil.
The only thing I knew, and I had no vision for the future like I do today, the only thing I knew at that point is it wasn't getting worse. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what I was planting. I was just doing the work. I didn't know what kind of crops. I had no clue.
But it wasn't getting worse. You weren't producing dandelions.
No, I didn't know.
Right.
Right? I didn't know. I just did.
You needed something different. It couldn't be the same.
So when they say live day to day, right, one day at a time, I literally, factually lived one day at a time. A lot of times I didn't know what I was doing tomorrow. I didn't know what I was doing the following week. I didn't have plans. I literally, for 2 years, I lived one day at a time. I could care less. I mean, maybe sometimes with my girlfriend and who I ended up marrying, I had a plan for the following weekend, right? But I didn't care about it. I didn't focus on it. I didn't think about it. I looked at today. What was my plan today? Page 86, upon awakening. Plan our day, right? What are we going to do today that's productive? And that's literally what I did for several years. So that was one of my seeds is sitting and suffering better, right? And I even share that with Jen now. She goes, you don't suffer. I'm like, you have no idea what goes through my head, right? But that's how I classified it. When I'm in a tough situation, challenging situation, suffer better. Another seed that I learned early on, ask for help. I no longer had to be Superman. I no longer had to figure it all out myself. When I got in a tough spot, I'd call my sponsor. When I had a challenge, I'd call my sponsor. And then guess what? You hang around long enough, you have other sober AA brothers. I only have a couple of women's phone numbers, AA women's phone numbers on my phone. I'm very cautious about that. But I got a ton of brothers. And so then I started saying, hey, I call my sponsor for everything. And I'm like, hey, Big Bill went through this. He's going to be my guy. I'm going to call for that, right? Mm-hmm. And I started to build a network of people, and I realized that a problem shared is a problem halved, and I no longer had to lean on everybody.
Now you're throwing more seeds out there.
Oh, I'm using more seeds.
You've got a better chance.
So call seeds tools, whatever you want to call them,
right?
Whatever metaphor for this retreat, we're calling them seeds, right? In general, I call them tools, right? And so asking for help and getting outside of my help is one of the seeds. Another seed that I really clicked for me early on is the Ferris wheel. And I actually I brought my Ferris wheel picture, right? And it's about 12 by 12. It's got a beautiful blue, sexy blue sky. The Ferris wheel is the prettiest one I've ever seen. Gold cars, big gold cars. And what I learned is, my life today is like on that Ferris wheel. Right. Sometimes I'm at the top. I'm loving the view. Right. I'm. Oh my God, this is the best ever. I get chills. This is cool. Boy, this is really worth it. Sometimes I'm at the bottom. Right.
Ooh, nasty.
Where you can see the puke. Somebody puke. Somebody. All the trash. You can smell the fumes, exhaust from the motor.
Diesel.
All the ugly people are giving you stares because they want to get on and get off. It's my turn to get on. Right. It's just not. It's ugly.
It's not sexy.
But I use that sittability, right? Suffer better. I can hang out at the bottom. Or what's worse is a Tuesday afternoon that's cloudy and I'm bored.
You're in the middle.
I'm in the middle. Oh my God, I hate being in the middle. I'd rather be on the top or on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather be 9 years plus sober, or I'd rather be a 4-6 in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Don't put me anywhere in the middle. Right? That's just my personality, how I am, extremes. Right? I either want to be the best or the worst. And it's funny, my sponsor, we were in a meeting, and he knows I'm a 4-6, and he knows what that means to me. And the guy said, "Hey, I was at a 4-7." And my sponsor looked at me, he shakes his finger, he goes, "Don't you even think about it."
That's right.
Because he knows
lose
me,
that
right?
one.
Yeah, he says it's okay to lose that, right? Just stay with your 4-6. You don't need to be the worst. So that was another seed, and what I really learned about that first wheel, and those gold cars are really sexy, it holds about 8 or 10 people, is it really matters who I'm going around that first wheel with. And the key part is I learned that first wheel always moves. If I'm on the top, enjoy it. It's going to move. If I'm on the bottom, suffer better. You're going to get through it. There's nothing you can get. I just talked with a sponsor. There's nothing I can't get through. And there's no situation I can get through with having to take a drink. I can get through anything being sober. And that's an amazing level of confidence. That's a seed, right? Another seed that I shared was my faith and fact button, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all these, I just put them into one presentation, right? But the faith and fact button, when I started out, I was 100% on faith. I had no facts, right? And then that dial started to move between faith and fact because I watched you and your program and your success stories. And I watched, Jim's and Dave's and Jane's and Bob's, and I started believing if it happened to you, it can happen to me. Mm-hmm. And then after a long period of time, because I'm on the slow train, I saw things starting to work for me, right? And I saw facts for me. And now I have so many facts from watching others' programs. I have so many facts from my own program. My little dial is probably 90% on fact. Mm-hmm. And that gives such a level of confidence. I can go into any situation, and I got the tools, I got the seeds, I know where I'm going, I know what I'm doing. So all through the presentation, right, I'm using the sponsor water can, right? I'm holding up the sun, the higher power, using it all the way, right? Another key seed is my spiritual program. Probably 3 years into it, step 3, made a decision to turn my life and my will over to the care of God as I understood him. Right? I spent 18 months on step 3, way too long. I'm still resentful against my sponsor. Just kidding. But I spent all that time trying to figure it out, right? And that's how what step 3 says. Follow the words of the damn program. It says, just make a decision, right? I spent 18 months.
Not making a decision.
Yeah, well, I was trying to solve
Figure it all out.
And you're
right.
part of that story because you and I really, focused on this, and I did so much on the spiritual path. Just to break it down, I had to unlearn a lot of the religious bullshit I grew up with, and judgment, and damnation, and criticizing others. I mean, if you wore the jeans in my church growing up, you were a backslider, you were a sinner. They had all these sexy words for you, and it's all bullshit. Because if you read, the God of the Bible and the Jesus of the Bible that I live today, he loved on the whore at the well. Had 5 husbands and was sleeping with some dude. The prodigal son story. He loved and blessed misfit stories. And man, did I have a misfit story. And so that was the God of my new understanding. I had to unlearn and learn about a new God that I have a relation with today. Small G. He doesn't demand a big G. Right? I can call him dude. Man, we are a parent-son relationship. That's how I look at it. He's like the prodigal son. I lived in the shit. I lived in pig pen. I ate the pig shit. And yet,
literally.
And yet, when I decided to go back to True North, his arms were wide open. He didn't have a checklist about all the shit that I did. It was, man, don't worry about that. Let's start new today. And I'm getting chills right now because it was so powerful and so amazing. I needed that type of God, not you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do like the thief on the cross. He said, dude, I believe in you. Jesus, I believe in you. Hey, tonight you'll see me in paradise. He didn't give a fucking list of rules that you had to follow and all this shit you had to do and all this stuff. You didn't have that, right? And so that's what I needed in my life was a level of forgiveness because in my alcoholic hell, it was really dirty and nasty. It was a pigsty. And another seed that I shared is my morning meditations and music, right? Psalm 40. It's amazing how this shit works. U2 had about 30 minutes. They had one song to fill, and they had 30 minutes left in the studio. Bono opened its Bible to Psalm 40, and they wrote the song 40 from the Bible Psalm 40. And that's my life song. He lifted me up out of the pit, out of the miry clay. My life was lost. He lifted me up on a rock, and I will sing a new song. And that's what I'm doing in sobriety, and that's what I'm doing on the sober path, is I learned to put the old song away, and I've learned to sing a new song, and I sing it loudly, and I sing it proudly, and I sing it with confidence, because this shit works. Another seed is keep coming back, right? So then what I did is, I had a couple more seeds, but that's why it lasted an hour, right? But then what I did is I reached under the podium, and I brought out this beautiful flowering purple plant, and I call it the plant of the promises. And I said, unfortunately, the way this shit works is I just planted all this stuff. What does it take to get from here to here? It takes time, right? It takes constant watering, the right soil.
Nurturing, yeah.
It takes all the props that I brought out just to kind of have a joke, right? It takes the higher power. It takes community. But then if you do it, it turns into this beautiful plant of the promises, right? And it was like really pretty. And I'm like, I got to flash roll the promises today. I can't leave you here without showing you. So I read the promises, and I'm like, here's what I got today. I have peace, right? And I define peace where everything in my life at a particular time is all okay. It doesn't need to be fantastic.
Not great.
Super bumblebee fantastic, as I use with my daughters. It was just great. And, I just shared, man, I have, and this shit, you cannot make it up. And when you say, hey, was it all in your plan? No. The first time I heard the promises, and folks, you got to read the promises. First time I heard the promises, I was in this meeting, and I turned to the guy next to me. I'm like, dude, these are awesome. I'm like, when do we start reading these? He looks at me and says, Glenn, we've read them at every meeting you've been at for 2 years. But that's where I was.
Sometimes quickly, sometimes
right.
slowly.
And I can remember that night going home, and I want the 6,500 square foot house back. I want the big executive job back. I want my Volvo racing station wagon back that goes 200 miles an hour. I want my family back. I want my kids back. I want this back, this back, this back. I remember that night going home and making that list, and that purple plant of promises today, 1,000%, every one of those promises are coming true for me. And it looks nothing like that list.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can attribute that to is my step 3, is I made the list back then. God makes the list for me today. And I'm telling you, I have an amazing relation with God today. I'm involved with a church group. Half the guys are in AA. We got 22, 23 guys in it. All better. There's so many amazing stories from that group. Guys on the right path, trying to do the right thing, be better husbands, men, right? So I've got that. I've got 2 projects, work projects. The only way that they have come about is God's got his hand on. I mean, and I can go on an hour on each one of those. There is 1,000% God created those opportunities, and
they weren't on your list.
Parted the waters.
Right.
No, parted the waters beyond my dream. Fear of economic, insecurity is gone. Does that mean I'm rich? No. It's just, I just don't worry.
The fear's gone.
I just don't worry about the fear anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't say you're going to get rich.
I got confidence. It works out, right? I have I have a wife. Part of it is I learned how to have a loving relationship, right? I'm no longer a dick. I'm no longer an asshole, right? So it's kind of cool
Wait
to
a
have
minute, is that all it takes?
Yeah.
Just don't be a dick.
Well, that's good. That's a good start. But I love her, right? And I'm committed to her. I wake up every day, even when she's cranky. I choose to love her. And I know she doesn't listen to this, so I can say that. But, she's cranky. People are people, right? But I choose to love her every single day, and I serve her. Another seed is serving. All I do, man, is think of others and give to others. And what I know is I am taken care of 10 times better than I ever thought by giving and thinking and serving others. So I serve, right? So that's part of the promises today, is I have a love of serving opportunities. I have 50 guys in my network, man, that I can get anything done in this world, anything done. And you know what? They step and do something for me because they know I'm not doing it for myself.
Right.
They know I'm not thinking of me, I'm thinking of others. And hey, man, I need your help with this to jump in here and help me get this done for this person. And you should see people give thousands of dollars. People give hours of time,
right?
Hours of expertise. They'll introduce me to somebody else, and it's just amazing how this shit works. Those 2 daughters who wrote me off, I have amazing relationships with them, about ready to go on a trip, a family trip with them, with their guys. And I have a grandbaby. You know, and my daughter texted, they reach out to me 80% of the time. We reach out to them 20% of the time. You know, they crave a relationship with me, and I have a granddaughter. You know, Dad, you got to get down here, man. She's not 19, 20 months old. She's on the phone. She goes, hi, Pops. Love you, Pops. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind? Those daughters never would ever talk to me again. It took years for that to turn around. It took living amends. It took living this program, you know, to turn that around. So, you know, the promises, I get so pumped up about the promises. I have a life today. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Do I have challenges? Every single day. But I got tools, I got seeds to help me get through them. And the biggest thing that I'm proud about, right, because you asked me before, did I look ahead, right? And I never really looked ahead. The only way I look ahead today is I know when I hit the finish line, I am building a legacy where I made my amends.
I think you've turned into a pretty purple flower.
It was cool looking.
Yeah.
It was cool looking.
It's awesome.
So I get emotional, man, because I'm telling you, I was emotional when I was in the shit. And you know, the biggest crock of shit I hear out there in this world is AA doesn't work.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, man, you got your head up your ass.
Right. And it's funny. It worked for me, and it worked for you. It might not work for somebody else, but my question always goes back to, did you work it? And the seeds you sowed, you were working it. You were working.
Well, we asked Dr. John, and Dr. John, you know, was always the smartest guy in the room. And I say, Dr. John, people say it doesn't work. What do you say? He goes, it's easy. They got their head up their ass. They didn't work it. They didn't surrender. They did it their way. They were smarter. They changed the words. They. You know, and I believe that to be true. And I cheer and pray for the people that are anti-AA, and we're pro-sobriety,
right.
You know, but, I mean, you don't have to go through AA, but you can't say AA doesn't work.
Right. Glenn, thanks for sharing this today.
Was that enough of a flash roll for you?
Yeah, what did we go, about an hour?
No, we didn't. Half hour, 20 minutes.
Hey, again, shout out to Brian at Audio Hive.
And Zach.
Yeah, doing us remotely. I'm glad we carved this
Thanks,
time
guys.
out. We'll send him home with some coffee. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Zach.
You're welcome.
See you, bros. Love you, man.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@sober.coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.